Hi, guys. Welcome back to Girl Therapy. I'm your host, Nicole. Thank you so much for joining me another week. I missed you guys so much. I hope everybody had an amazing weekend whenever you're listening to this. How are you? How are you doing? I am doing okay. I feel like I've had a weird week, to be honest. I just have been feeling really lethargic and thinking back on I don't know, I had something this week that kind of threw me off. And when things throw me off, it's hard for me because I'm conflicted with who I want to be or who I know I should be, which is why I made this series or started to on TikTok called, I would just start saying something like the person that I want to be would, because it's so easy to get wrapped up in our emotions and make decisions based on how we are feeling at the current moment and not serving our future selves when we know we should be serving our future selves, because we don't want to be sad. We don't want to be overweight. We don't want to be, lazy, whatever it is for you. You don't want to be those things. But because of your current state and how you're feeling, you stay in that low vibration, because how am I supposed to go and get the energy to work out when I'm tired? How am I supposed to be happy when I feel sad, when my current situations are sad, when they're hurting me, or when, I'm heartbroken? Like, how am I supposed to be happy, go out and do these things and stay focused when I'm hurting? And I just started saying this little thing of like, the future me would do this, because I'm not going to function as the person that I am now, because the person I am now is not who I want to be, And I guess I'm just always the type of person who's wanting to be their best selves. And it has its negatives sometimes where it's like, I can be really hard on myself and I can not let myself just have a bad day or not let myself just be lazy for one day. And it's finding that balance. But when it becomes a day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, it starts to become a habit. And that's not who I want to be. So I started to saying like the person that I want to be would do this, because there's all these dreams too that I want, all these things that I want to accomplish. And I want to be this really successful person. When I look at other people, like my friend Holly, she's super successful and consistent, and her life is beautiful. Like I love following her. I love being her friend. Like I'm so supportive of her. And I'm like, I want those things. But like, you don't see her sitting at home. I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. I mean, everybody has their bad days and stuff like that. But like, she's making stuff happen. And if I want to be the successful person who has this fitness yoga online platform and hosts these big events, like I have to be doing stuff that somebody who owns a business and does events and has an online platform would be doing. Like a person with a big following is not sitting at home being lazy every single day. A person, they're getting up early, they're doing their thing, they're making their videos, they're being consistent, they're showing up every day for their audience, and they're showing up for themselves, and they're getting their shit together, and they're going through their emails and they're answering them, and they're making the necessary changes that they have to change. So yeah, I just started to be like, Nicole, like if you want to get 1 million followers, you have to act like you have 1 million followers and what a person with 1 million followers would be doing. And sometimes I slack. Sometimes I just fall off. Sometimes I let my emotions get the better of me and I lead with my emotions. Or if I'm not feeling good, I'm like, oh, I'll just like won't go live, or I just like won't record. And there's times, yes, when you have to listen to yourself and listen to your body and give yourself a break in what you need. But then there's other times when you have to differentiate when to push yourself and when to be like, no, you need to go do it, because nobody's going to do it for you and nobody's going to want it for you. And just like I talked about in last week's episode, like nobody wants your dream as much as you want it. Nobody's going to dream for you. Nobody's going to make stuff happen for you. You have to make it happen for yourself. Today, I just want to talk about that, which I kind of just did, but also just these moments where, again, you're like conflicted with who you used to be and who you are, and having like a bit of an identity crisis. Like sometimes I go through these ruts where I don't know who I am because I've made so many changes to my life recently that I'm kind of like, I get lost. I get lost as like the person I want to show up as and how I would react in situations when things happen to me. I don't know if this is making sense, but it's like, I feel like I've done a lot of healing and self-work, and I've changed a lot of aspects in my life that sometimes I've changed internally so much that the external isn't always reflecting my internal environment. So sometimes I'm put in situations or things happen to me that throw me off because I'm like, that's not something that the current me would accept or want to be a part of or would allow or would even associate with or play with, if that makes sense. But I'm in this situation, and because I'm in this situation, how do I react? How do I respond? How do I get out of it in a graceful way that's representing my future self, but without letting it be too passive or without letting me feel as if I'm getting walked all over, letting things go? I don't, like, does that make sense? It's like, I want to be the bigger person sometimes, like if I'm talking about a specific situation, because that's what the future me would want. Like, I would want to be proud of how I handle specific things. Like, I would want to look back and be like, you handled that with dignity, with grace, with confidence. You knew your worth and you walked away. But then I also want to make sure that I stand my ground and I am not letting people almost like get away with things. But I guess I'm finding clarity in just speaking about this out loud, because nobody's really gonna like ever get away with anything. Like, God will take care of everything. You just have to act in a way that you're proud of and what your heart, and like act from your heart. And I know I never want to hurt anybody. And I know I never want to say mean things. I know I never want to act out in frustration or act on my emotions. Like, I really practice patience and stepping away from situations and allowing things to kind of unfold and for clarity to find me. I guess it's all about just meeting yourself where you are at and being like, okay, that person or situation or whatever it is isn't aligned with me and the person that I am. And I can only control how I want to react to this. That person might think that they're getting away with whatever it is. But as long as I feel proud of how I'm reacting and how I am, then that's okay. And what can I do now to make sure that that doesn't happen again, or I don't feel this way again, or I'm not put in that situation again? And I think this is like a massive thing that happens when you make a lot of changes in your life. Because I was just listening to Vu this morning, actually, and Dawn Tree talked about how it actually aligned perfectly with what I wanted to talk about, which is like, what'd she say? Like, old wines or new wines need new skins or something like that. Like, something about when, like, I think when you're making wine, I'm not really sure where she got this, but when you're making wine and you put it and it's fermenting, or it's something about it, you have to like change its skin so that it can preserve and preserve and like take on that new skin. And that's essentially like you changing your environment. So if you are your new self in an old skin, in an old environment, it's going to feel like really weird and out of place. And you're going to be presented with so many situations or like conflicting emotions of like who you are. Like, you're going to have that identity crisis because you're this new person in this old environment. It's like if you are sober and then you're at a club all the time surrounded by drunk people, you're going to be like, what? Like, what's going on? Like, you're not going to know who you are because you're surrounded in this old environment of like things that you used to do and things that don't align with you anymore and things that you don't want to partake in, things that you don't stand by. But it's like, but then who am I to be here? You know what I mean? So when you grow and you change, like snakes, how they have to shed their skin and get a new one. When you grow and you change, like, you have to accept the fact that your environment's going to change, the people that you surround yourself with is going to change, the conversations that you're having is going to change. Like, that's another thing. When I started to really work on myself, find God, and really just indulge in high vibrational activities and things that made me feel good and the person that I wanted to be, I stopped wanting to gossip so much, and even not even just about, like, I never really gossip. Well, I guess me and my friends will talk about, things that are going on, this, that, like things that happen. Yeah, it's like fun, it's fun to talk about crazy things and things, whatever, stories, and gossip about things that are going on in my life and dating and this and that. And I reined that in on the internet. I think that was like my first step, was like no longer putting out stuff that I don't want to talk about, that I don't want to like put out there for the public to know about me. Like, I started to really value my privacy about my dating and personal matters, essentially. Like, I still share a lot about things that are going on in my life, but I make it more broad in general, and I don't share everything right away either. Sometimes I share things later on when I've healed and moved on and I'm ready to share them. I don't feel like I owe the internet or you guys anything, which, sorry, but like, I don't owe you guys an explanation. I don't owe you guys the story right then and there if I don't want to share it. That's my personal life. And I think that came down to me just being like a confident person and like what I have to offer, and being more than just the stuff that's going on in my life, to be interesting. But when I decided like I don't really want to even talk about other people with people, like I don't even want to hear other people talking about other people, my friendship started to change, and like the way I looked at the people around me started to change, because if I don't want to be around that, then it's like I don't want to be around those people who talk about it. And unfortunately, people love to gossip and people love to talk about that. So the conversations that I started like having with my friends had to change. And it's like, who can I talk to that doesn't just want to gossip, that has more to offer than information about other people, or more to offer than just about like asking about my dating life, I think like was something that was tough, because like I had to like rework my friendships and like find new things to bond over and talk about. And then some people just don't have that depth. Some people don't have that self-awareness. Some people love to just talk about other people because it makes them feel better about themselves, or it distracts them from their lives, or it just feels like it just happens sometimes. Like, I get it. Like, I find myself sometimes like I just want to like tell them this, like there's opportunities where I'm like, oh, this story aligns with this. Like, I should tell them this. And then I have to be like, but why? Like, don't, like, why feed the beast, or like, why even bring that up, or who cares? It doesn't affect my life or their life. So I find myself really holding my tongue a lot now, especially in like response to things that people say. Like, someone's like, oh, like this, and like wanting a reaction to me, and I'll just be like, okay, and they'll be like, oh, okay, and I'll be like, yeah, like I'm sorry, like I just don't really like care that much about that. And then there's times when I find myself like just act like you start to like get into your old habits, and like I'll just like gossip a little bit, or I'll like listen to gossip, and I'll just be like, yeah, like, and then after that I'll just be like, wait, that didn't feel good, and like I don't know why I did that, and like I'll be like, I don't know why I even like listened to that, or I don't know why I surrounded myself with that, and I can beat myself up and just be like, I wish I didn't like do that, like that didn't like. So I think in those moments where you find yourself like going to old habits or old ways, that's okay. I think you need to allow yourself forgiveness and grace, because you are changing and you are a different person. And just like one little slip up doesn't mean that like all the work that you've done goes to the garbage. But it's all kind of about like your bounce back abilities, like how fast you can bounce back. And my time of bounce back has definitely decreased, in the sense of like I can bounce back from things really quickly now. I remember like in the past when I used to fall off, like I don't sit there and relish in the negative thoughts or in these like this bad self-talk or like spiral down this like crazy negative cycle. Even when I'm going through something with friendships or a guy and they hurt me or something happens, I do have my moment where I'm like, oh, like, this is how old me would react. And this is kind of like the habits that I would then do for the next couple days. Self-pity, isolation, closing myself off, wanting to push somebody away. Like, that's definitely a thing. I self-isolate a lot. And I know that's not healthy. I find myself now like allowing people in better and being more patient, understanding, and listening to what people have to say. And like, yeah, like sometimes it's like I take a day, I take my day of self-pity, of isolation, of like, I just need to collect my thoughts before I can like speak to you, speak on this, speak on anything. And that's so much better than how I used to be. And I'm proud of the fact that I can take a moment, take a breath, pray, lean on God, get my stuff together, get my thoughts together, so that when I am presented with the opportunity to then sort out that situation, talk to that person, I'm coming at them with a really level head. And I'm also just not, hurting myself in the process of like pushing everybody away because one person hurt me or because one bad situation happened. Like I'm getting a lot better at picking myself up and standing on my 2 feet when I get knocked down and when things get tough. And I'm also like leaning on family, I feel like, more, which has been nice. Like sometimes I'm careful about opening up to my mom about too many things. And I know that she doesn't like that, but I know like until I kind of have more things sorted, I don't like to speak to her or honestly anybody about things anymore, because it's like you have to explain and keep them updated more. And when you do that, it causes me a lot of anxiety of like having to feel like I have to explain that person's actions and then my actions and then keep them updated along the way and like kind of like prolong and relive the experience so many times when I could just like wait, keep it to myself, figure things out for myself, and then come to them. So that's something else. So sometimes like when I find myself in situations where it's like I said too much or I talked too much, I'm like, oh, like I shouldn't have told that person that, like I shouldn't have been so eager to give up that information. So I have those moments too where I conflict with like who I am, where it's like I want to tell this person this thing because like they're part of my life, but at the same time, and I don't want to be like secretive, but at the same time, like I need to also keep things to myself for like my sanity sake. So that's like another internal battle that I have, which I think like these things are all so normal as you like mature and you grow up and you figure out what you value and who you want to be and who you want people to see you as and like who you really are, like not just who you want people to see you as, but like who you really are, and like making sure that you're reflecting that at all times. Because I would say like in the past, it's actually not that I've changed so much as a person, like I have, but internally I'm the same. It's just what you're seeing on the external is different, in the fact where like my external self is now reflecting who I've always been internally. Where externally I used to reflect this different version of me or who I thought I should be or who I wanted to be, or as a protective mechanism, being this crazy, spontaneous, loud, which I definitely still those things, but more Nicole, not somebody else, not trying to be somebody else, not acting out of ego or fear or like needing to prove myself to anybody. Like I'm truly just internally, like my external is just completely who I am internally. So it's those moments where I do something that isn't reflecting my internal that I really beat myself up, because I'm like, that's something that like old Nicole would have done. But like, again, the whole point of this episode is to share like that's okay, and those moments happen, and I have to give myself grace. And like I'm still new to this whole like thing, like I'm still new to me, I'm still new to like finding me and like who I want to be, and I love who I'm turning into, and having those moments is okay, and reflecting on that is actually growth too, because that's how you learn, is like by reflecting and looking back at like how much progress you made and how much you've changed. So that's really important as well. I also just want to talk about how small habits and things that you do at home and behind closed doors are some of who you are. And you might think these things aren't important because nobody's watching you, but they're actually way more important because you're showing up for yourself and you're holding yourself accountable. And I don't care what you do in front of other people or when people are watching. It's what you do when people aren't that is really your true self. And proving that you do in fact love yourself and you're not doing it for anybody except for you. Because you want to be the best version of yourself. Because you want to be the highest version of yourself. And in those moments where it's like you're at home and you want to sleep in because you have nothing to do and nobody will know if you get up at 7 or 8, doesn't matter, right? But it's like you'll know. And what would the person that you want to be do? Would they wake up at 7 or would they snooze their alarm? Would they get up and go for their walk and listen to a good podcast, go to the gym? Like, what would that person be doing when nobody's watching? The things that you do essentially create who you are. If you are going to the gym, going on your walks, working out, hanging out with good people, like that's who you're going to be. If you're not doing those things, you're not going to be that person and you're not going to be surrounded by those people who do those things. Like I have friends who go out and drink a lot and I really don't see them that much because that's not what I partake in. And they have completely different friendship circles than I do and completely different routines than I do. And that reflects who they are. Those things are who they are. And the things that I do are who I am. And it doesn't mean they're a bad person. It just shows that all of the little things that you do correlate to who you are and who you are becoming. So just to be weary of that when you're making these little decisions throughout your day of like, what would the highest version of me be doing? What would that person look like? What would that person be saying? What would that person be wearing? What would that person be eating, be drinking, be talking about? Those are all very important things. Even me just getting ready today and putting on makeup, it's like, yeah, the person that I want to be would be getting ready and making herself look put together and presentable and not just walking around like a slob all day. Her space would be clean, which is why I like clean my space because I'm like, I can't preach this whole like self-love thing and like curating your environment and all this stuff. And I can't like sit here and be like, oh, like I don't feel good, I'm sad when like my space is a mess. Of course you're not feeling motivated. Like, yeah, it's annoying. It takes a minute to like, it's hard to like start cleaning. Sometimes you're just like, you don't want to do it, but like do it because that's what the person would be doing. I wouldn't be living in a pigsty. I'd be living in a very clean space, in a space that I am proud of. And I would be brushing my hair and I'd be putting my makeup on. Sometimes the yogi in me conflicts with these things because it's like, okay, that's like, you're so materialistic, right? No, care about your appearance. Care about your appearance and how you show up. Even if no one sees me today, nobody's really going to see me today. But it's like, I know how I feel. I know what I want to look like. I know what I'm doing. Nobody has any idea. Like nobody cared if I got ready today. Nobody. Even like online, it's like I can record TikToks of me looking hideous, which I do a lot of the time. Okay, not hideous, Nicole, you're gorgeous. But like not put together. And I need to like, I feel like whenever I do that, my content declines because it's just like, no, like why would I want to watch somebody who doesn't care what they look like? Even if it's just little things, like at least moisturize your face, put on some lip balm, brush your hair, you know, like all these things make a difference of like who you show up as and like how you curate your life. I don't know, my thoughts were kind of all over the place. Like this is very much off the whim from my heart, just like kind of talking about like where I'm at in life and dealing with things. And I think the most important thing, honestly, the takeaway of this is just to ask yourself, what would the future version of me be doing? What would that person that I want to be doing look like? And just go from there in any situation. Even in those times that you have a setback, it's like, okay, what would the person that I want to be, how would they handle this? Would they be sad about it? Would they beat themselves up about it? Or would they take ownership and move on? And that's kind of just like the secret of it all, is just like being honest and real with yourself. And how much you're willing to grow and learn is directly correlated to how willing you are to face your truths and to face your reality and to hold up the mirror. If you can't face the reality of it, you're never going to be the highest version of yourself. That's kind of what I have for you guys today. I love you so much. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, Nicole Doyan, TikTok, Nicole_Doyan, Snapchat, Nicole Doyan. And that's it. I love you guys so much. Bye. See you next week.